Remember this iconic moment from Disney's 1950s Cinderella? This was Walt's favorite piece of animation of all time. Walt's heart identified and connected with the concept of transformation and change. He loved the beauty in going from hardship to abundance, rags to riches, and out with the old and in with the new. Embracing the beauty of change and transformation was always at the heart of Walt Disney's story of Cinderella. In 2015, through the remake, Disney takes that foundational concept and puts a modern twist on it, while also incorporating new symbolism that stays true to Cinderella's story. Hey Wonders, it's JoJo, and if you thought I was gonna go without talking about Cinderella for a Cinderella movie, you knew this was coming. You knew this was coming. Cinderella and its themes, the movie's themes, have always been an integral part of my channel and what I personally believe in. So, you know I was gonna eventually cover the remake, right? If you are new here, please like the video and subscribe. I mean, do that regardless, but like the video and subscribe. And I'm sure there's something that you can find in my catalog that will be entertaining for you. So as of late, I've been dissatisfied with Disney remakes. And, you know, finally there's one where I can say, you know what, it's okay. It's all right. It's enjoyable. I feel like this time around it's more enjoyable because it doesn't feel politically charged. It doesn't feel like Cinderella herself is some girl boss who can do any and everything. And it feels like it tries to keep most of the original movie's values intact. And for that, I can appreciate this film. I think one of the biggest reasons why this remake works and why it's the more appealing of the remakes for fans is because at the heart, Disney's Cinderella was about change. It was about transformation. And this remake does try to keep that intact. While it is missing some other things that we'll get into later on, overall, I feel like it tries to keep those values of change and transformation in there and kind of explores them and puts a twist on them. One of my personal favorite additions is the symbolism of the butterfly. The butterfly is literally, not even joking, in my top 3 favorite animals or creatures of all time. And yeah, so for me, that gave me all the excuse in the world to embrace the butterflies, right? I think Disney uses the butterfly as a metaphor for Cinderella's gentle and kind nature, just like butterflies. But I also think that they use it to symbolize her eventual freedom. You know, a butterfly flies in the wind. It flies free. It flutters, it flies, it's free. And I feel like with Cinderella being a caged bird, essentially, the butterfly symbolizes her being finally free from the abuse, you know, free from just a lot of the mental and physical anguish she was going through. So good job, Disney. I did appreciate that. In the movie, Disney has multiple references to change and transformation, and many of them have a lot to do with customs and traditions and changing those. In the movie, the prince and his crew were participating in a stag hunt. Ella protects the stag from being killed and tells the prince that just because something was always done that way or a certain way doesn't mean it must continue that way. There was also the extending of the invitation to the ball beyond just the nobility. Yes, that was in the original film as well, but this time it's the prince's idea to do so and not his thirsty father who just wants to marry his son off. Of course, there was also Cinderella being more open-minded to having her dress modified by the fairy godmother. She loves her mother's dress, but she is still open to its change and transformation. There's also the king, finally realizing that his son should marry who he loves instead of their old tired tradition. Disney does a great job overall showing the beauty of transformation and the importance of change in the film. I think it helps to drive home the theme while also respecting the traditional values in the original film. Let's take a moment to highlight some other honorable mentions. For example, Cinderella's kindness and resilience is explained. She stays in the chateau and she stays in an abusive relationship, that being her step family, because her memories of her family, her birth mother and birth father, are important to her. They had a lot of beautiful and wonderful memories in that house, and Cinderella wants to keep the house intact because that's the closest thing she has to her beloved and late mother and father. So I thought that was a great job of explaining why Cinderella is so kind and why it seems like she's just so readily able to forgive and stay and give people chances. Now, while I feel like in the original it didn't really need that, still I think it's a welcomed addition overall. And speaking of the abusive relationship, for those of you who give Cinderella so much flack and so much crap that she should have just
ran away. Why did she stay? She was stupid for staying. What kind of woman does that? Wow, horrible example for women.
Check out my Cinderella Princess Pathology for my explanation on that, because I don't want to go into it too much in this video and it's going to irritate me all over again. But for those of you who gave Cinderella so much more flack, guess what? In this film, she actually tries to run away. The one thing that stops her is the fact that she doesn't want to leave that house behind because of how much it means to her and because of a promise that she made to her mother. So there we go. Disney corrected it and she tried to run away. So please, can we leave Cinderella alone and stop disrespecting her about how she should have ran away and she was dumb for staying in an abusive situation. And last of the honorable mentions are the backstory and the added personalities to the characters. The prince is actually a living, breathing person with hobbies and interests and goals. A lot of the time people look at the women who seem to be neglected when it comes to having a personality, having goals, dreams, aspirations, a spirit, having life to the character. But people overlook that happens to men, especially in the earlier Disney films. That happened to a lot of men. Prince Charming was just that, a Prince Charming. He was good looking, he was rich, and that was really it. No one cared anything else about the prince. But now the prince has an actual backstory, he has a personality, he has goals, ambitions, dreams, he has likes, dislikes. He feels like a more complete person, and that is wonderful. I gotta give props to the male characters because people seem to just forget about the male characters. Also, the prince's father, the king, is a little more fleshed out. He's not just some thirsty father who can't wait to marry off his son, regardless of his son's happiness. He actually has to, again, change and transformation. He actually has to assess himself as a king and as a father. And, am I doing the right thing? Am I considering the people that I love, And I really appreciate that. I think that was a wonderful addition. Also, Lady Tremaine, while still deliciously evil, we have an explanation as to why she's evil. She's not just, the evil woman whose husband, whose second husband passed away and, now she's just a complete and total B. No, she has a story. Don't get me wrong. I don't think she's justified, but it helps explain it better. And I do really like that. Now, no Disney remake goes without ruining the magic of the original in some kind of way, shape, and form. Even the ones that are seen as the better remakes, right? So there's some screw ups in some kind of way. And for starters, I feel that when Cinderella was the most down on her luck after her dress was ripped apart, I didn't feel like she was at her wit's end. I didn't feel like the last of her hope was gone. Here's why. To me, she seems more upset that her mother's dress got destroyed, more so than this was a gift from my closest friends to me for, because they want to see me be happy. They want to see me be great. In the original film, the animals, her friends, made the dress, or rather altered the dress, because Cinderella was intentionally kept busy by her stepfamily. So when Cinderella thought she wasn't going to be able to go, her best friend surprised her with a completed dress.
It's mine.
So basically, Cinderella got a miracle because how many women would have had their dress completed? You know, I mean, let's be realistic. Animals ain't really helping humans all like that. I mean, animals are cool, but they ain't making nobody no dress. So Cinderella got a miracle. When that dress was ripped off of her by her stepfamily in the original, you felt the weight of it when Cinderella just had it. She had it. She wasn't able to work on her own dress to begin with. The ball was her biggest wish at that time. That's all she wanted, was just a night out to just be herself, do her, and be great. That's all she wanted. And then her friends came through for her and altered that dress for her. So it feels like her miracle was ripped from her. She felt like she let her friends down. She felt like all was lost. And that, to me, made me feel like, okay, I can see why she would only have literally one drop of hope left. Because remember, the fairy godmother can't appear unless there's some hope left. Well, or some faith. Also, since the script was changed, Cinderella is actually free to roam and go about. She wasn't able to do that in the first film. She was literally trapped to that chateau. However, because that change was made and she's able to freely go, come and go, when Cinderella is finally free, you don't feel the same sense of the cage bird was finally let free. You don't really feel that because she was always able to come and go. The only thing that kept her there was her promise to her family and her memories of her beloved family. But the ball was something that it was a symbol of freedom. It was a symbol of getting out and having an experience. And that was taken from Cinderella, if you really think about it, in a way. The ball was still a big deal, but the ball wasn't, I get to be free, because Cinderella was already free. In the remake, it was just more so like, she wanted to visit her friend. That's what it was. She wanted to visit her friend, the friend that she had made all in 5 minutes of meeting him for the first time. Talk about like complaining that these female characters fall in love or get close to the male character so quickly, but she literally calls herself the prince's friend after 5 minutes of meeting in the forest. I mean, okay. I'm just saying, like, if you want to complain about that, don't do the very thing that you complain about. Another issue I have is I feel like the concept of wishing and dreaming and having faith in those dreams was really watered down, if not completely removed. For me, what stands out to me in the original film, what stood out to me, what I resonate with the most, is the wishing, is the dreaming, is the having faith and believing that one day, the dreams that you wish will come true. Well, in this movie, that's not really there. Cinderella doesn't really have a grand wish. She doesn't really have, a really big goal. Now, granted, she didn't really have one that much in the original film. It was very ambiguous. We didn't really know what Cinderella's dream and wish was. However, the fact that she was so much into wishes and dreams, we kind of let that slide because she was such a believer that it was like we believed in her and we didn't even know what we were believing in because we don't know what she wanted. But in this film, it was stripped of Cinderella. Cinderella doesn't have that dreamy, wishy, kind of factor to her. I feel like A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes should have been in the film. At least I can understand if the direction is more so, I can understand the new direction that they wanted to go, but you can at least keep the song. Just put an instrumental in the background. I would have loved that if you put like, but like had her just living her life or up in her room, in the tower, that would have been fine. Just have a beautiful instrumental of A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes. That way it can still feel like, it can feel more like it's Cinderella. You know what I'm saying? But no, all of the music, really all of the amazing soundtrack was omitted. And that sucks because actually a massive part, other than the art, the massive part of what gave the Cinderella movie that dreamy factor was the music, was the soundtrack. So with the soundtrack completely gone, Cinderella isn't so much about wishing and hoping and praying and believing and having faith. That's just, without that, it's just not really that much part of her character. It's not that much a part of her character anymore. When the prince and Ella were in the ballroom dancing, I was like, okay, here we go. So this is love. So this is love. Yeah, I'm like smiling, like waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and it never played. I'm like, okay. I mean, one of the things that I thought was appealing about the original film was, again, that dreamy soundtrack where it set the tone of the moment, And it was completely removed. So Disney, I don't really like that. I want to be clear about something. There's nothing wrong with having a more proactive Cinderella. I am totally okay with that. I thought Ella was fine. But I feel like in some of their minds, they might have felt that Cinderella would be seen as a weaker character if she still held on to her hopes and her dreams. And I feel like that's bogus. I feel like a lot of us who believe in our hopes and our dreams, we still work, we still chase after what we want. Our most inner person, our most inner self, our most inner desire, I'm sure is still wishing and hoping and praying. That's a part of the human experience. And that's what made Cinderella so relatable, in my opinion. Because we all have that, I'd like to think, we all have that part in us where we hope, we wish, we dream, and we pray, and we have faith that better times will come, or that we'll be able to get what we want, or our situation will improve. You know what I'm saying? Like, why take that out? Why take away something that made Cinderella so relatable? But all right, I'll end it there. Although I feel like overall the movie is fine. The movie's fine. I just feel like Cinderella should have maintained her dreamer sense, especially since in a lot of the Disney merchandise, they have Cinderella, really all the princesses, they're dreamers, and they advertise in that way in their merchandise. Cinderella was the foundational Disney dreamer, and for them to take that away just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But tell me what you think. Do you feel like Ella was just fine, or do you feel like, yeah, that was missing? She should have still had some sense of like faith and dreams and, believing. And I just feel like her maintaining kindness and forgiveness, that's great, but that's not the same thing. The desire for, like her memories and her family, like that's beautiful and everything. And I'm sure she does wish to be with them once again, but let's be realistic, that can't happen. So yeah, you tell me, what did you think of the remake? Did you think it was good? Did you think it was bad? Was it somewhere in between? Keep believing, keep having faith. Just keep believing in your dreams. Until next time, I will see you in the next one. See ya. Where's that damn spider?